brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Goodfellas. Goodfellas is a 1990 American crime film directed by Martin Scorsese. It is an adaptation of the 1986 non-fiction book Wiseguy by Nicholas Pileggi, who co-wrote the screenplay with Scorsese. The film narrates the rise and fall of mob associate Henry Hill and his friends over a period from 1955 to 1980. Scorsese initially named the film Wiseguy and postponed making it. Later, he and Pileggi changed the name to Goodfellas to prepare for their roles in the film. Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Ray Liotta often spoke with Pileggi, who shared research material left over from writing the book. According to Pesci, improvisation and ad-libbing came out of rehearsals wherein Scorsese gave the actors freedom to do whatever they wanted. The director made transcripts of these sessions, took the lines he liked best, and put them into a revised script, which the cast worked from during principal photography. Made on a budget of $25 million, Goodfellas grossed $46.8 million. It received positive reviews from critics and was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, with Pesci winning Best Actor in a Supporting Role. The film won 5 awards from the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, including Best Film and Best Director. Additionally, Goodfellas was named the year's best film by various critics groups. Goodfellas is widely regarded as one of the greatest films in the crime genre. In 2000, it was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the United States Library of Congress. Its content and style have been emulated in numerous other films and television shows. Plot: Henry Hill quits school and is taken under the wing of local mob leader Paulie Cicero, and his associates, James, Jimmy the Gent, Conway, who loves hijacking trucks, and Tommy DeVito, an aggressive armed robber with a temper. In April 1967, they commit the Air France robbery. Enjoying the perks of their criminal life, they spend most of their nights at the Copacabana nightclub carousing with women. Henry meets and later marries Karen, a Jewish woman from the Five Towns area of Long Island. Karen is initially troubled by Henry's criminal activities, but is soon seduced by his glamorous lifestyle. On June 11, 1970, Billy Batts, a mobster in the Gambino crime family, insults Tommy with persistent remarks about him having been a shoeshine boy in his younger days. Enraged, Tommy and Jimmy attack and kill him, knowing their murder of a made man would mean retribution from the Gambino crime family, which could possibly include Paulie being ordered to kill them. Jimmy, Henry, and Tommy cover up the murder. They transport the body in the trunk of Henry's car and bury it in upstate New York. 6 months later, Jimmy learns that the burial site is slated for development, forcing them to exhume the decomposing corpse and move it. Henry sets up his mistress, Janice Rossi, in an apartment. When Karen finds out about their relationship, she tries to confront Janice and then threatens Henry at gunpoint. Henry moves out to live with Janice, but Paulie gets involved, mediates between the couple and directs him to return to Karen after completing a job for him. Henry and Jimmy are sent to collect a debt from a gambler in Florida, but they are arrested after being turned in by the gambler's sister, a typist for the FBI. Jimmy and Henry receive 10-year prison sentences. In prison, Henry sells drugs smuggled in by Karen to support his family on the outside. After his early release in 1978, Henry further establishes himself in the drug trade, ignoring Paulie's ban on drug trafficking, and convinces Tommy and Jimmy to join him. Jimmy and a lot of Henry's associates commit the Lufthansa heist at John F. Kennedy International Airport, stealing $6 million. After a few members buy expensive items, and the getaway car is found by police, Jimmy has most of the crew killed. Tommy is eventually killed in retribution for Bat's murder, having been fooled into thinking he would become a made man. By May 11, 1980, Henry is a nervous wreck from cocaine use and insomnia. He tries to organize a drug deal with his associates in Pittsburgh, but he is arrested by narcotics agents and jailed. After he is bailed out, Karen tells him she flushed $60,000 worth of cocaine down the toilet to prevent FBI agents from finding it during their raid, leaving the family virtually penniless. Feeling betrayed by Henry's drug dealings, Paulie gives him $3,200 and ends their association. Facing federal charges and realizing Jimmy plans to have him killed, Henry decides to enroll in the Witness Protection Program. He gives sufficient testimony to have Paulie and Jimmy arrested and convicted. Forced out of his gangster life, Henry now has to face living in the real world. He narrates, "I'm an average nobody. I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook." The end title cards reveal that Henry is still in the Witness Protection Program, and in 1987, he was arrested in Seattle, Washington for narcotics conspiracy, and he received 5 years probation. Since 1987, Henry has been clean. Henry and Karen Hill separated in 1989 after 25 years of marriage. Paul Cicero died in 1988 in Fort Worth Federal Prison at the age of 73 due to respiratory illness. Jimmy Conway is serving a 20 years to life sentence for murder in a New York prison, and that he won't be eligible for parole till 2004 when he will be 78 years old. Cast: Robert De Niro as James, Jimmy the Gent Conway, Ray Liotta as Henry Hill, Joe Pesci as Tommy DeVito, Lorraine Bracco as Karen Hill, Paul Sorvino as Paul, Paulie Cicero, Frank Severo as Frankie Carboni, Frank Vincent as Billy Batts, Tony Darrow as Sonny Buns, Mike Starr as Frenchie, Chuck Lowe as Maury Kessler, Frank DiLeo as Tuddy Cicero, Samuel L. Jackson as Parnell, Stax Edwards, Frank Adonis as Anthony Stabile, Catherine Scorsese as Tommy DeVito's mother, Gina Mastrogiacomo as Janice Rossi, Debbie Mazur as Sandy, Margot Winkler as Belle Kessler, Charles Scorsese as Vinnie, Michael Imperioli as Spider, Tony Sirico as Tony Stax, Frank Pellegrino as Johnny Dio. Development: Goodfellas is based on New York crime reporter Nicholas Pileggi's book Wiseguy. Martin Scorsese never intended to make another mob film until he read a review of Pileggi's book, which he read while working on the set of Color of Money in 1986. He had always been fascinated by the mob lifestyle and was drawn to Pileggi's book because it was the most honest portrayal of gangsters he had ever read. After reading Pileggi's book, the filmmaker knew what approach he wanted to take, to begin Goodfellas like a gunshot and have it get faster from there. Almost like a 2.5-hour trailer. I think it's the only way you can really sense the exhilaration of the lifestyle, and to get a sense of why a lot of people are attracted to it. According to Pileggi, Scorsese cold called the writer and told him, "I've been waiting for this book my entire life." To which Pileggi replied, "I've been waiting for this phone call my entire life." Scorsese originally intended to direct the film before The Last Temptation of Christ, but when funds materialized to make Last Temptation, he decided to postpone Wiseguy. He was drawn to the documentary aspects of Pileggi's book. The book Wiseguy gives you a sense of the day-to-day life, the tedium, how they work, how they take over certain nightclubs, and for what reasons. It shows how it's done. He saw Goodfellas as the third film in an unplanned trilogy of films that examined the lives of Italian Americans, from slightly different angles. He has often described the film as a mob home movie that is about money, because that's what they're really in business for. Screenplay. Scorsese and Pileggi collaborated on the screenplay, and over the course of the 12 drafts it took to reach the ideal script, the reporter realized the visual styling had to be completely redone. So we decided to share credit. They decided which sections of the book they liked and put them together like building blocks. Scorsese persuaded Pileggi that they did not need to follow a traditional narrative structure. The director wanted to take the gangster film and deal with it episode by episode, but start in the middle and move backwards and forwards. Scorsese would compact scenes, and realized that if they were kept short, the impact after about an hour and a half would be terrific. He wanted to do the voiceover like the opening of Jules and Jim, and use all the basic tricks of the new wave from around 1961. The names of several real-life gangsters were altered. For the film, Tommy Two Gun DeSimone became the character Tommy DeVito. Paul Vario became Paulie Cicero, and Jimmy, the Gent, Burke was portrayed as Jimmy Conway. Pileggi and Scorsese decided to change the title of their film to Goodfellas, because two contemporary projects, the 1986 Brian De Palma film Wiseguy, and the 1987 to 1990 TV series Wiseguy, had used similar titles. Casting. Once Robert De Niro agreed to play Conway, Scorsese was able to secure the money needed to make the film. The director cast Ray Liotta after De Niro saw him in Jonathan Demme's Something Wild, and Scorsese was surprised by his explosive energy in that film. The actor had read Pileggi's book when it came out and was fascinated by it. A couple of years afterwards, his agent told him Scorsese was going to direct a film version. In 1988, Liotta met the director over a period of a couple of months and auditioned for the film. The actor campaigned aggressively for a role, but the studio wanted a well-known actor. "I think they would have rather had Eddie Murphy than me," the actor remembers. To prepare for the role, De Niro consulted with Pileggi, who had research material that had been discarded while writing the book. De Niro often called Hill several times a day to ask how Burke walked, held his cigarette, and so on. Driving to and from the set, Liotta listened to FBI audio cassette tapes of Hill, so he could practice speaking like his real-life counterpart. To research her role, Lorraine Bracco tried to get close to a mob wife, but was unable to, because they exist in a very tight-knit community. She decided not to meet the real Karen, because she thought it would be better if the creation came from me. I used her life with her parents as an emotional guideline for the role. Paul Sorvino had no problem finding the voice and walk of his character, but found it challenging finding that kernel of coldness and absolute hardness that is antithetical to my nature except when my family is threatened. Principal photography. 2 weeks in advance of the filming, the real Henry Hill was paid $480,000. The film was shot on location in Queens, New York, New Jersey, and parts of Long Island. during the spring and summer of 1989, with a budget of $25 million. Scorsese broke the film down into sequences and storyboarded everything, because of the complicated style throughout. According to the filmmaker, he wanted lots of movement and I wanted it to be throughout the whole picture. And I wanted the style to kind of break down by the end, so that by Henry's last day as a wise guy, it's as if the whole picture would be out of control, give the impression he's just going to spin off the edge and fly out. He claims that the film's style comes from the first 2 or 3 minutes of Jules and Jim, extensive narration, quick edits, freeze frames, and multiple locale switches. It was this reckless attitude towards convention that mirrored the attitude of many of the gangsters in the film. Scorsese remarked, "So if you do the movie, you say, I don't care if there's too much narration, too many quick cuts. That's too bad. It's the kind of really punk attitude we're trying to show." He adopted a frenetic style to almost overwhelm the audience with images and information. He also put plenty of detail in every frame, because the gangster life is so rich. The use of freeze frames was done because Scorsese wanted images that would stop, because a point was being reached in Henry's life. Joe Pesci didn't judge his character, but found the scene where he kills Spider for talking back to his character hard to do, because he had trouble justifying the action until he forced himself to feel the way Tommy did. Lorraine Bracco found the shoot to be an emotionally difficult one, because it was such a male-dominated cast, and she realized if she did not make her work important, it would probably end up on the cutting room floor. When it came to the relationship between Henry and Karen, Bracco saw no difference between an abused wife and her character. According to Pesci, improvisation and ad-libbing came out of rehearsals wherein Scorsese let the actors do whatever they wanted. He made transcripts of these sessions, took the lines the actors came up with that he liked best, and put them into a revised script that the cast worked from during principal photography. For example, the scene where Tommy tells a story and Henry is responding to him, the "funny how do I amuse you" scene, is based on an actual event that happened to Pesci. It was worked on in rehearsals where he and Liotta improvised, and Scorsese recorded 4 to 5 takes, rewrote their dialogue, and inserted it into the script. The dinner scene with Tommy's mother was largely improvised. Her painting of the bearded man with the dogs was based on a photograph from National Geographic magazine. The cast did not meet Henry Hill during the film's shoot until a few weeks before it premiered. Liotta met him in an undisclosed city. Hill had seen the film and told the actor that he loved it. The long tracking shot through the Copacabana nightclub came about because of a practical problem. The filmmakers could not get permission to go in the short way, and this forced them to go round the back. Scorsese decided to film the sequence in one unbroken shot in order to symbolize that Henry's entire life was ahead of him, commenting, "It's his seduction of her Karen and it's also the lifestyle seducing him." This sequence was shot 8 times. Henry's last day as a wise guy was the hardest part of the film for Scorsese to shoot, because he wanted to properly show Henry's state of anxiety, paranoia, and racing thoughts caused by cocaine and amphetamines intoxication, which is difficult for an actor to accurately portray. Scorsese explained to movie critic Mark Cousins in an interview the reason for Pesci shooting at the screen at the end of the film. "Well, that's a reference right to the end of the Great Train Robbery. That's the way that ends that film, and basically the plot of this picture is very similar to the Great Train Robbery. It hasn't changed. 90 years later, it's the same story." The gunshots will always be there. He's always going to look behind his back. He's gotta have eyes behind his back. Because they're gonna get to him someday. The director ended the film with Henry regretting that he is no longer a wise guy, about which Scorsese said, "I think the audience should get angry at him, and I would hope they do, and maybe with the system which allows this." Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.